we are talking about the full support of the French economy minister to Egypt. What he said in his meeting with the president, that France is backing up, fully backing up Egypt in the international commodities market and in implementing the national projects in Egypt. Hello, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, I don't hear you. Can you kindly repeat the question, please?
Yeah, definitely. Well, the French Ministry of Economy met with the president, and they discussed maximizing the French investments in Egypt, and he asserted the full support of France to Egypt during the international commodity crisis, the international commodities market, actually. So how do you see that?
Well, if we all know that the COVID and what happened in Ukraine has adversely affected most of the economies over the world, not only Egypt. But Egypt is facing it in a very positive way that is creating areas of interest and interaction with the foreign countries like France or Kuwait or Saudi Arabia and the Emirates, so that the Egyptian economy is not adversely affected by these factors which are facing all of the Arab countries and the other countries in the world. What is happening now is that we see that the Egyptian economy is strong enough to face it, but it needs the support of friendly countries, whether it is France or as I mentioned, the United Arab Emirates or Gulf area countries, in a way that helps it to face this hiccup, if you can say, quality hiccup, and at the same time encourage the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, to support it with the facilities which is used in the proper way by the financial authorities in Egypt.
Yes. So also another is what's the Arab investments, like to Egypt, the Emirates, gave 5 billion, Qatar 5 billion, Saudi Arabia 10, Kuwait 4, and also the president's meeting with the Qatari foreign minister. How do you see all that?
When we find that the Arab countries, the Gulf countries, are supplying Egypt with about $24 billion to support our foreign exchanges, this means that they are sure they can get their money back, and they are sure that the Egyptian economy can absorb this big amount of money to support our foreign reserves. And at the same time, new investment opportunities are there in Egypt, and they are coming in this way so that they can expand the presence of the foreign investment, because Egypt needs foreign investment, not only local investment, so that we can activate the economy and try rehabilitate some sectors which needs foreign exchange, that is to say, foreign reserves, and the needs of the economy are coming at the foremost of the interests of the government, and they are following the steps which are followed by other countries to support the economy and try to invigorate it, especially in the sectors which are very lucrative for the foreign investors, like the power and the land reclamation and the industry, and these are sectors which are really viable and lucrative for the other investors, or for any investor who is coming to Egypt of 110 million consumers.
Yes. Mr. Ayoub Mahmoud, thank you very much for being with us. Well, we're just with our guest for tonight. We have with us Dr. Khouly, former Dean of Management School at Shams University, and also the chairman of the promotion committee, the university's promotion committee, if I'm saying it right.
Vice Council of the University.
Yes. Well, sir, welcome again. It's always a pleasure having you.
You're very welcome. And first of all, happy Ramadan for all people all over the Arab world. Happy Ramadan, and I hope everything will be fine during these holidays.
Definitely. Well, we hope, like Ramadan has its own blessings all over the world and in the Arab world, and well, blessings, all over, everywhere.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Well, a lot of changes are taking place, definitely, not only worldwide. Well, we're in a global village, so anything that happens is affecting everybody. And definitely with the crisis that is happening right now, or crises caused by the Russian-Ukrainian war that is touching everybody. And, well, the oil, the gas and all these things, and the need for Europe and our need for corn and wheat and a lot, things that everybody is just, working on to secure his own commodities for the people and what they need. So what is the situation? How do you see that affecting us? How do you see us through this crisis?
Of course, we've been through pandemic for a couple of years now,
Yeah.
and we survived during the COVID-19 pandemic. And Egypt, it was on the plus side. It was the only country in the region which it has a positive growth rate, and right by the end of COVID-19, it became another world crisis. It's not an Egyptian crisis, but all over the world, especially European country, got heavily affected, and America and Canada, the whole world got affected by the war between Russia and Ukraine. And leadership of Egypt took a natural role in playing a role in natural way during this crisis. Of course, Russia, one of the main export for oil industry and for wheat, which most of the wheats we get from whether Russia or Ukraine, and we are going to be affected in a way or another. And remember, the Egyptian policymaker look for opportunity, and to start to get opportunity. For example, what you stated with the French economic minister come to Egypt and lending hand with a lot of economic support and investing in Egypt. Why Egypt? Because we have a stable environment. We have infrastructure now, which we don't have it before. We have surplus from energy in Egypt. And we have a lot of opportunity for gas and so on, exploration, and we just signed agreement with the Italian company in Egypt, which take long time. And now the environment in Egypt, the investment environment, it's a good place to be invest in Egypt. And that's why when the Minister of Economy came to Egypt, he signed agreement for manufacturing. And remember, what we need in Egypt right now is really to build more factory than the malls, Of course, all other investment before, in the last 2 decades, it was a consuming project. Now, Egypt for industrial based project, and we build a strategic alliance, for example, with France, to have a joint venture between Egyptian industry and French industry, and that's a healthy way for the economy. Economy, it means you have to develop an industrial base for your country, so you don't import, but you can export from that. Of course, the leadership of Egypt, they were predicting this crisis years ago when we started to have, increase the land for 1.5 million acre for wheat and many other products and corn, which really reduce the dependence of importing wheat from our seas. We really, it's about according to the statistics, we have about 80% now it will be produced in Egypt, and that's the good news. And remember, to store the wheat after they gain it and after they plant it, we have a lot of inventory area right now have enough inventory and stock for the next 6 months, which it wasn't like that before. It was the inventory, it was last for 1 month or 2 months.
Yes.
Now we are in the safe place, because remember, the majority of Egyptian people, 110 people, depend on wheat, and they depend on, you have to feed 110 million people in a daily basis with the wheat, and we cannot really increase the price of the basic substance for our people. Remember, with the policy right now is to attract not only from France but all other country, European country. In the near future, it will come and invest in Egypt. By my recommendation, we should really focus on having a strategic alliance or joint venture in industrial base. We should really manufacture more, and we should really satisfy our basic needs here in Egypt through our manufacturing facility, and that is what we should do in the next as a next step. We build the infrastructure. We have excess capacity of electricity and power supply. Now we have to attract not malls but factory in order to satisfy the needs for our local market.
Well, the thing is, well, we are one village, definitely, and everything affects everybody. But then also, we are far away from the turmoil there or the crisis somehow. So at the same time, I think we can have our foreign direct investments. We can have business going on here that is lucrative business for other countries. Definitely, they want to invest in Egypt here. So what about foreign direct investments, foreign investments in Egypt here?
Remember, you in your report mentioned United Arab Emirates lend Egypt and Qatar and Saudi Arabia and Kuwait, which altogether came to about $24 billion. And the Central Bank of Egypt, when they increased the interest rate, in a couple of days we came out was over 200 billion from the Egyptian people. So I believe we should really focus on internal investment from Egyptian people, business people, to join the government in a joint venture for industrial base, not developing compound and malls and so on. We should really, in the future, we should focus on that. And when we integrate the private sector into our economy, in building factories and so on, it will be a good news. The other issue is the location of Egypt, the security and safety. We have safe environment and safe haven for investment. I believe more foreign direct investment will come to Egypt because the stability, because the infrastructure, because the power supply and so on, it will attract. But remember, we have to provide them with some incentive in order to come to Egypt. And we have the infrastructure. The government should really make more facilitation, more incentive for all this foreign direct investment to come to Egypt in all different perspectives, in agriculture, industry. That is the most two important things. In education, in health care. And with these two things, education and health care, we can build our economic system strong and stronger in the future. And that is a major issue.
Definitely. So also you said, we should be incorporating the private business within the whole, just depending more on it, I think, because it's the government cannot do everything on its own. So
absolutely.
We have to have the private businesses taking a very big part, and helping in those crises or just rebuilding the country.
Remember our industrial sectors, when in the 50s, where we start our industrial base, there is no maintenance, there is no investing in new technology and so on. And remember, a year ago, President Sisi really issued, we should really focus on the fourth industrial revolution. Fourth industrial revolution, it needs some basic needs, such as we have to improve our education in order to be able to cope with the fourth industrial revolution. So we should focus on our educational system in how to integrate the new technology in our curriculum and so on. And remember, the public sector or most of the industrial sectors, which it need a lot of re-engineering, with restructure in order to really substitute old technology with new technology. And of course, you cannot do it yourself. Therefore, we have to build a strategic alliance inside Egypt or outside Egypt with internal investment or foreign direct investment. And I believe with the idea of a strategic alliance with joint venture, whether with European country, Asian country, even in the States, American companies, if we build such as a strategic alliance with this manufacturing company, it will help us in win-win situation. Of course, the foreign direct, the foreign investor want to make money, and we have the population over 100 million, so it attracts really foreign direct investment to come to Egypt. Also, a strategic alliance is simply you are going to share technology with them, which you don't have. We should really integrate a new advanced method of managing the business, whether it's hardware or software, in order to enhance the mentality and the way we manage our industrial sector. And that is must. It is the time, because a lot of public organization in manufacturing, they are in the losing function. The curve goes downward. And we really should focus on that. How to integrate or how to attract foreign direct investment to invest in our industrial sectors. I believe if we do that, the foreign direct investor, they will win, and our side will win. We have the labor force, which is cheaper, more cheaper or less expensive than any other country in the world. And we should focus on our competitive advantage. Labor is our competitive advantage. Location is our advantage. Infrastructure is our competitive advantage. Power supply is our competitive advantage. If we really straight that with foreign partner, will be to attract more and more international or foreign direct investment to Egypt. But remember, the focus right now is industrial sector, to enhance our industrial sectors, and for the government is to provide some incentive in order to attract more and more foreign direct investment into industrial sector and agriculture sector. That is the two main sectors we should focus on right now in order to satisfy the local needs, and after you satisfy, you can export the rest to the outside. And it will increase the hard currency for Egyptian economy.
So do you think like raising the interest rate will definitely, there is the great economy segment, and this segment, is there, like they're just making money, but this is not registered, and there are no proofs, how much they make. They make a lot of money, definitely. But then with that, can they just, in order to get good, if they're getting, it's an incentive of putting their money in the banks with an 18% or more later on, see how things will go, like that is enough incentive for them to put their money in the banks?
Remember, the unofficial economy count in Egypt for about 80%. And that is, so when you have hidden economy count for 80%, you cannot really make a significant development for your economy. So that is, it needs some awareness, it needs education, it needs to simplify the taxation system you have in Egypt. Of course, the Ministry of Finance, they launched like software in order to do it at home and so on. But most of the hidden economy, most of them, they are illiterate, so you need to educate them. You have to make some awareness through all different means of awareness, like TV and so on. We have to simplify the process in order for the regular person who have a small store, a small business and intermediate business to be getting involved in our taxation system.
Definitely.
And really it needs a lot of work for the government in order to get through the
A lot of
small,
trust.
absolutely,
Definitely,
absolutely, absolutely.
definitely, and everything should be mobilized in that
Absolutely.
sense. Definitely, definitely. Sir, you know, with all the changes taking place and everything, we go back to the basic thing that is education. Now, the role of education in all that, whether it's like schools, universities, definitely how they're faring right now. We're just having new schools, you have new systems, we have you know, new universities, but what's going on?
In order to cope with whatever we said before, the intention of President Sisi or the leadership of Egypt is to implement the fourth industrial revolution.
Yeah.
And the fourth industrial revolution, it needs a new knowledge base. And in order to cope with that, you must have like a technical university, not the regular education, but more technical perspective. And remember, all the research and development in developed country, like in the States or Europe, they really depend on technical institution. Technical institution, it means simply how to do it, how to invest in technology in order to produce, the end process is to produce a product, is to produce a manufacturing system, which it really the base of technical university. We should focus on that, really. Remember, most of the university, it is teaching oriented, the large number of students and so on. That is not the kind of education we need for the fourth industrial revolution. Fourth industrial revolution, we need artificial intelligence, we need Internet of Things, we need 3D printing, we need lean system, and all of this advanced system, it needs a different type of education in order to cope with the new development in manufacturing sector and so on. Remember, if we really attract foreign investor in industry in Egypt, it's a win-win in terms of we are going to share knowledge, we are going to share experience, we'll be able to reduce our employment rate to the lowest level possible from integrating this industry. I believe if we do that, Egypt location, it will be the hub for industrial sector. And remember, the effect of Ukrainian and Russian war, it really affected in a negative way, very negative way, the logistic system all over the world. And now China for looking for a hub, a lot of European countries looking for a hub in order to be able to transfer their product from the hub, which is in Egypt, to Africa, to Arab countries, to the Middle East, and so on. And I believe it's a great opportunity for now, for the government, for the leadership of Egypt, is to really focus on this opportunity to build a hub for industry in Egypt by integrating or by a strategic alliance with foreign direct investor in industrial base and again in agriculture base. In order to improve these two sectors, we need a backbone for that, which is education, whether education in university, and for university, we should really make a new structure for technical university, which it will be able to go with this industrial development and the new technology. It's very important.
Well, you know, when we talked about, you know, like diplomas or just having, you know, like things that less than, you know, certificates, you know, from universities, there was some kind of stigma attached to it. But I think, you know, by time with the changes that are happening right now, the stigma is, you know, getting less, and everybody's trying to do what they have, you know, what they want to do. whether it's going to be a diploma or something, that people used to look at as less of importance, when it's very important in servicing those people, or everybody, I mean.
Remember, pre-university, I'm talking about high school and going to KG and so on, we should to implement the new method of critical thinking. Let our kids think, not knowing by heart.
Yeah.
Most of our educational system, and that's what Tariq Shabi
Memorizing.
tried to do, is really to, because the pyramids of knowledge start with the knowing by heart, but we still knowing by heart until now. You go up the ladder in these pyramids, you go for creativity and innovation. So we should really build for our education, pre-college and in college and in university, the critical thing. Let people think. I believe our kids are very smart, but when you have a lot of materials and you have to know by heart in order to pass your exam and withstand C and so on, this system must be changed in a way or
It takes a lot
another.
of effort. It makes them fear everything. It's not really, it doesn't cope with the demands and the new era.
That is critical thinking.
Yeah.
It helps all different ages, whether from KG to high school or from university, is to let our kids explore their themselves, let them open mind, let them think out of the box, not inside the box, and that's known by heart. And the system, if you're talking about it, you must have like re-engineer or restructure our educational system in order to cope with the advances, in order to cope with fourth revolution industry, fifth revolution industry. It's coming, and of course education depending on textbook, not this way in Europe and so on. We have what we call it as open sources learning environment. Everything now in Egyptian Knowledge Bank, you can get in and find any type of information. Our kids, for example, they open the internet and they get the information from different sources. And really we should integrate technology in our educational system. Remember with COVID-19, when we most of the people shut down, even in education, we are really forced to go online.
Yeah.
And it was a very much resistance for online. And remember, like 3 years in this program, I told you my recommendation is to devote 25% for online learning in case of crisis. And we have this crisis in order to interact, whether from home, from workplace, and so on.
Yeah.
Whether you are in Cairo or outside of Cairo, whether you are in Egypt or outside of Egypt, you can get the learning process continue. There is a lot of resistance for that, but when COVID-19 came for 2 years, we didn't shut down schools. We continues through platform, through online, face-to-face, hybrid type of education, which many universities in Europe and in the States and in Canada and in Asia, it's 100% online. You go to university, you didn't find one student. They all go online. But we have to develop a platform in order to have integrative learning process. It needs a lot of work.
Definitely. Well, you're talking about, one thing after the other, somehow it was not that stable, but things were colder, kind of under the surface, the war between, the different entities. But, the COVID-19, and it just required a lot of change. Then later on, this is what's happening. And it's not an ending thing. We see that, there's one thing after the other. Like the COVID-19 and derivatives and I don't know what, and then this and, changes that come and then they just supersede the other things that we're afraid of, and then raising prices and doing all that and creating some kind of havoc in countries, because with the rising of prices, even now, even in the United States, I read one news, that prices will keep hiking in always, whether like in restaurants or for the consumers, and supermarkets. That's definitely rising and rising, which is going to be uncomfortable for the citizen, definitely.
It's scary, you know, but remember, the Egyptian government take, you know, some decisions in order to subsidize, for example, the increase in retirement and in salary by 13 to 15%, in order to help people to cope with the inflation and so on.
Yeah.
And that is the good news to control the prices in the market. Remember, it is in the state in Europe, it's totally free. It's supply and demand, you know. When the war between Russia and Ukraine started, it affected the oil supply worldwide. As I mentioned for you before, it affected the supply chain, it affected the logistic system, and the prices go up, doubled. For example, for oil, for example, in the state, the gallon was $2, now it's $4.50. And what you used to spend 70, you spend now 150. So the people, they are very suffering because it's a free market, and the government, it's really the federal government, didn't interact in order to protect their citizens. In Egypt, it's a different situation. The government take an immediate action for increasing salary, and this, in a way or another, it helped the people to cope with this. Remember, we got through COVID and we'll go through this crisis, and we have, remember, Egypt Vision 2030 with plan of 1.5 million acre for wheat and so on. It doesn't come by chance, but it was planned. And when we have this crisis, we have, 80% will be sufficient to our local consumption. Remember, awareness is very important.
Definitely.
We should really be able to save our supply. You don't have it in the States or in Europe. Most of the supermarket, their shelf is filled with the product and so on. In Europe and the States, the shelf is empty during the pandemic.
Definitely.
And during
even now, there are problems.
absolutely.
Definitely. Yeah. So we're very lucky, actually, with the governance, of the government is taking control of everything, and how they're just preempting any kind of crisis like that, and by just putting the food, everything. We are in Ramadan, the holy month of Ramadan. There are outlets, that are going cheaper than other places, supermarkets, and even there are supermarkets that are taking share, in just giving the items with less prices, which is really good. So everybody can find everything they want. And
remember, our value system played the role for that. We help each other.
Definitely.
And that's Egyptian, we are used to help each other. And during the months of Ramadan, we really, a lot of people subsidize other people and so on, and life goes on. Remember, we went through tougher crisis than that, and we got through it during the 60s, during 67 war. It was a very tough time for Egyptian. In 73, when we won the war against Israel, the people stand together, and that is the Egyptian value system. I believe we should really focus on our value system. Our value system and our culture, it is the base for development.
Going back to the origins again.
Absolutely. Go back to your basics. And that is what President Sisi, when he started in 2014, he focused on building or sustaining our Egyptian value. To let the Egyptian passport, it has a value. Egyptian ID, it has a value.
Yes.
Egyptian citizen, it has a value, whether in Egypt or outside of Egypt. And really, that is the backbone for our industrial, for our agriculture, for our economic development, is the value system of Egyptian.
Definitely. Well, unfortunately, good times fly. And we
always with you.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure having you. And we'll see you again in the coming weeks, and with the developments
Happy
taking
Ramadan.
place.
Happy Ramadan for
to
everyone.
you and to everybody, definitely. So
Thank you.
bless Ramadan for everybody, for the whole world. And as we always end, God bless Egypt, God bless Egyptians, God bless our president, our army, our white army, and our own police forces, all that are working together to protect Egypt and Egyptians. Well, I'm Nermin Nazim signing off. Before we go, I always say, ادخلوا مصر إن شاء الله آمنين, quoting the Holy Quran, enter Egypt God willing, safe, and from the Holy Bible, Mubarak, Sha'bi Misr, blessed be Egypt, my people. Goodbye for now.